All right, so at this point here, we have things set up, but if we run this app and try to go anywhere, let's see, click on here, it just says hello and doesn't take us anywhere. Okay, this hello is coming from our main activity here that we added here. But the best way to actually get things to work is that would be for us to create here an intent. So we can go ahead and say intent, call this intent. It's equal to new intent. Okay, and what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pass a few things into our intent. I'm going to say intent, and then what I would say, I would go ahead and say, for instance, start activity, and we pass our intent. Okay, that would work. Now our intent here, of course, we have to make sure that we are starting from here, which would be our main activity, that this, and then we are going to the details or course details activity as such, that class. Okay, so if we save this and give it a run, you noticed I'm going to just use our small one. Notice we're going to be able to go to our next activity with no problem. However, we want to make sure that when we pass our intent, we want to pass some information. That way we can fetch that information on inside of our next screen. That way we can then show the correct information about this particular course that we have tapped. I'm going to go to our course list fragment here. In our callback interface, I'm going to actually add another argument here. It's going to be int position. So this position here would allow us to pass the current position of our course. When that happens, you notice we have an issue here inside of our own list item click, because now it's saying, well, on our item selected, we have to pass another argument here, which is going to be the position. In this case, simply we are going to just say comma, and we're going to pass the position. Now, where is this position? Well, likely enough, because we are inside of our own list item click, we have our position here, which again is the position of each row that was created. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the position as such. So once we have that, if we go back to our main activity here, I can do a few things. The first thing is I need to change this and put it in position as well. So now I can go ahead and add, say, intent. I'm going to say put extra. So I'm going to call this course underscore ID. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pass a position. Okay. There it is, our position there. If we save this and give it a run, we are going to be able to go to our next intent or next activity. But most importantly, we should be able to also retrieve our course ID in our intent. Now, for us to be able to retrieve that, let's go ahead to inside our course detail. What am I going to do inside before we create our fragment here? I'm going to go ahead and create a bundle. I'm going to call this extra. And I'm going to say get intent, right? Because we're inside of an activity. I'm going to say dot get extras. So I'm going to say position. I'm going to say int position. It's going to be equal to extra that get int key. So the key is going to be course underscore ID as such. Okay. So our position here will now have the integer corresponding to each item, to each row, or the row that we just clicked. Now to show that, I'm going to say toast.makeText. I'm going to pass the get application context. That's totally fine. And I'm going to just say here position. I'm going to append our position such. Say toast long and dot show. If we ran this now, we should be able to retrieve the position that we are sending from our list. So click, and in a second here we should see position 0, right? Because now we're retrieving that inside of our detailed list here. If we go to the third one, take a few minutes because this is from previous, and position 2. If we go back and let's go to the 7th one here, back. Let's see this one, position 6. Okay. Let's try this first one. Should be 0. Takes a few seconds. Let's go back. Click on the 7th one. Should show 6. Very nice. So it's working as intended. Now, the beauty here is that because we know this position, we can do all sort of things, right? So we can construct our object. So at the top here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a course object. I'm going to call course. And inside here, I'm going to go ahead and say course is equal to, I'm going to go ahead and instantiate the data. I think it was get, let me go to data here. It's called course data. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say it's equal to course. I'm going to say new course data dot get course list. Now for this to work, I'm going to go ahead and say get. I'm going to look what I'm going to do. I'm going to say I'm going to go ahead and pass our index here, which is going to be position. This means that I have to move this down here because this is where we're actually getting our position here. So what's happening here, because we know our course data here, course list, will go and fetch the array list containing all of our courses, right? But we know also that if we use this course list and because it is indeed going to be returning an array list, which means we can also say invoke the get method and pass the position. So now it will go and get the array list containing all of our courses, but at the top, on top of that, we're also going to pass the position, which says that we want course number 0 or course index 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, that means now this course object here will contain our correct course, depending on the position that we have received from our previous screen. Just to give you an example here, what I'm going to do, because I know this course is an object, I can actually say course name here, and instead of passing the position, I'm going to say course dot get course name as such. Now you will see magic. If I ran this, you will see, let me use this one. If we go, we should see first course. Course name is first course. Yes. You see now? Run the second one. Or second, this should say course name is second course. Very nice. So we are now fetching the corresponding course. So we are now fetching all the course objects dynamically here. Now you'll notice right away that we are just solving one part of the problem here. Of course, if we ran this again, we see on a tablet here, it's still going to work okay. It's still going to work fine in terms of sending out the data and us being able to see all of that working. However, we are short. So see, still works fine, but this is not the intended behavior that we want, especially when we run inside of a bigger device or a tablet. Okay, because remember, the whole idea here is that when we click on each of these, we are going to use this fragment and populate that image and of course the course title and all of that and all of that information. Okay, so that means now here we are solving the problem for our activity. But remember, we are talking about here detailed fragment. This is the fragment that we need to look after. So what we need to do to make this work perfectly, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to pass this position also, this int position or this detail here that I'm receiving into our fragment. So what I'm going to do inside here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say fragment, this fragment we created at the top, which is the course detail fragment. I'm going to say dot set arguments. Okay. And for us to be able to set arguments, we have to pass a bundle argument, because now we can't just pass position because that's not a bundle. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and pass the extra, which is the bundle here, which contains, of course, we have to extract it, our course ID. So now once we have done this, we passed our fragment and we set the arguments to extra, which will contain our course ID. Let's go to our course detail fragment. So this is where we are going to be able to retrieve our bundle. So in order for us to be able to retrieve our bundle, obviously we have to do that inside of an onCreate method. So for that to work, we simply have to go and override the onCreate, because remember, onCreate method can be found inside of an activity. But remember also that activities and fragments, they work hand in hand, which means we can in fact invoke certain methods that come from activities inside of our fragments. So here, if I say on create, there we go, say enter, and there we go. Now we are indeed inside of our create. What I'm going to do inside here, I'm going to call a bundle, create a bundle, call bundle, and I'm going to go ahead and say, notice I'm going to say get arguments. The reason why we are saying get arguments, not get intent, because we are now getting it from, because we passed through our fragment. Okay, so I'm going to say get arguments, right? And these arguments now will have our bundle. Now we have to extract it. So I'm going to go ahead and say if statement here. I'm going to say if bundle is not null, because we want to make sure that bundle is not null. And we're going to say and bundle that contains key. The key is course underscore ID, right? Just want to make sure that if it's not null and contains that key, then indeed we know that the bundle is not empty. If that's the case, I'm just going to go ahead and say int position, right? I'm going to extract our bundle, because the bundle dot get int course underscore ID. So we have our flower course. So we have our course. So at the top here earlier, what we did, we created an instance variable of type course. So now is the time for us to do exactly what we did in our course detail here, right? We created our course, instantiated and fetched and instantiated our course data, which indeed has the course list, and then we pass in position. That way we can fetch our course object. Okay, so we're going to do something pretty much the same here. So I'm going to go ahead and say course, instantiate it to be new course data. As such, I'm going to invoke the course list, and that get, I'm going to pass the position. Perfect. Now I have my object. All right. Once the object is there, so now we have our course. And you notice this course, because we actually created an instance variable at the top here, it's also been used inside of onCreate. So this is called, it creates all of these text views, all of these widgets, and we're actually setting everything. So now if we ran our application, you'll see what's going to happen. So I'm going to open both of them. Look at this. So we ran, let's go to our phone, click that. Look at that. Now it says first course, and we have the image. Let's go back. It says second course for description, and we have an image. Very nice. And we can keep doing this. Oops. Seventh course, and so forth. Okay? And let's test the same concept here inside of our tablet. If you click that one, it takes us to the details, and you can see we have first course, so the same behavior, although this is not our intended behavior, of course, because again, like I said, we want to make sure that when we click, we are actually going to make sure that this is indeed filled with the information. At least now we're able to fetch information from first activity and push it onto the second activity for both activities and fragments. Perfect. So we are making really good progress here. So in the next video, what are we going to do? We're going to work on detecting whether we have two-pane application, meaning whether the application is running on a tablet or a phone. If it's running on a tablet, we want to make sure that when they click, we don't show the detailed page separately, right? We want to make sure that when they click, populate that information inside of our right pane here, okay, right view, okay? And that's what we're going to be doing next. See you next.